A promotion like this was enough to make anyone tense even when it was the good kind. Just don't forget about the presentation on Monday. You have to impress the division, her supervisor had told her that morning. And Leona had nodded with that anxious half-smile she always used when people expected confidence she didn't quite feel. She wouldn't forget. She couldn't forget. Still, as she hurried out of the building that Friday afternoon, her mind was already drifting elsewhere. May and Charlotte felt like midsummer. Heat shimmered across the parking lot, and Leona tugged off her blazer, leaving only her pale blue blouse clinging softly to her skin. She walked toward her car, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the same endless ringing she had been hearing all day. No answer from Marcus. Not once. Her stomach tightened with that quiet, creeping dread that always came before bad news or before you admitted something you didn't want to believe. What if something happened to him? A crash, a health scare. No, don't be ridiculous, she scolded herself. He was probably just in one of those long meetings he claimed to have, or somewhere with terrible reception. It was nothing. It had to be nothing. Their condo wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. A compact unit in a 90s-era brick high-rise tucked between older residential blocks. They'd bought it 5 years earlier, right after a dip in the housing market. A 15-year mortgage, barely scraped together. Her parents had pitched in a bit, his had chipped in a bit, but most of it was on them. Leona still remembered the day they received the keys. How she cried in the empty living room, turning in a slow circle, overwhelmed at the idea that this small place, all pale walls and unfinished edges, belonged to them alone. Their own little starting point. Their own little future. The drive from her office usually took at least an hour. Charlotte traffic was no joke. But today, the roads opened for her as if aware she needed the space to think. She made it in just 40 minutes. She pulled into her usual spot, killed the engine, and sat back in her seat for a moment, hands still on the wheel. What would she tell Marcus about getting home early? Would he be surprised, annoyed? Would he even be there? She checked her phone one more time. Still nothing. Okay, she whispered to herself. Here goes. Stepping out of the car, she inhaled and forced her nerves to quiet. In the lobby elevator, she found herself riding with her neighbor Miss Green, a retired woman who could have easily run her own gossip column. The kind of person who could tell you what everyone on the floor cooked for dinner last Tuesday. My goodness. Liana, you will not believe what happened in Unit 17, Miss Green began, adjusting her speckled glasses as though preparing a breaking news bulletin. Another uproar. That young girl caught her partner messing around with that cashier from the corner mart. The shouting. I thought the building was coming down. You don't say, Leona murmured, though her thoughts were far away, caught between worry and irritation. And how's your husband? Corinne asked, lowering her voice with conspiratorial sweetness. Still working those long hours. I saw him earlier today, round. Oh, maybe noon. Did he take a day off? Liana's breath caught. Noon, of course. I was coming back from my appointment and saw him just leaving the building. Sharp suit, briefcase. Looked in a hurry. The elevator door slid open, but Leona stayed still for a second longer. He was home at noon. Why wouldn't he answer her calls? Why lie about meetings? As she stepped out, her pulse thudded. Maybe Corinne was mistaken. Maybe it was someone else. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, not yet. Not without proof. She reached their door and slid the key into the lock slowly, as though the quietness might keep the truth at bay. The hinges barely sounded. She had oiled them herself just a week earlier. Inside, the entry light was on. Marcus? She called softly, toeing off her shoes. Are you home? Nothing. She set her bag down, swallowing the dry tightness in her throat, and walked deeper toward the condo. Maybe he wasn't here. Maybe Corinne just saw someone who looked like him. Then she froze. Voices muffled, low, coming from the kitchen. One was unmistakably Marcus's, the other a woman. Younger, maybe. Soft but sharp. A voice that slid into the air like a knife disguised as silk. Liana's pulse hammered so violently she felt it in her ears. She stepped forward on shaking legs, each footfall barely touching the floor. Are you sure she hasn't caught on? The woman asked. Not a chance, Marcus replied with a dismissive laugh. Liana believes everything I say. 12 years, can you imagine? She's never questioned a thing. It was like air being punched out of her chest. Liana grasped the wall, steadying herself as the world tilted beneath her. 12 years. 12 years. And that's a long time to string someone along, the woman teased. Her voice was husky, amused. But you told me her grandmother owns some fancy property uptown? Marcus scoffed. Fancy, it's unreal. A renovated brownstone on Hawthorne District. Huge rooms, tall ceilings worth a fortune. Grandma Nara is tough, but she's 83. Time isn't on her side, and all of it will go to Liana? The woman asked. Absolutely. She's the only family. And Nara loves her, the woman hummed. But Liana hasn't been visiting her much, right? Isn't she worried that might change something? Oh, she tries, Marcus replied, but I've kept them distant. Always something work, headaches, timing. They aren't as close as they used to be. And even if Nara changed her mind, it's too late. I already found a lawyer who drafted the new will. The brownstone goes to Liana, and since we're married, half goes to me, the woman laughed. Smart, but now, Marcus added, we just wait. Who knows how long Grandma Nara has left? Liana's world shattered into quiet, trembling pieces. The man she trusted. The man she defended. The man she built a life with. 12 years, and now she was hearing exactly what she feared most. Her husband didn't love her, he was waiting for her grandmother to die. And he had made sure the will benefited him. Her fingers curled at her sides, nails digging into her palms. Each breath hurt. It physically hurt. Liana stepped back from the kitchen doorway, her mind splintering into panic. What else had he done? How long had he planned this? And why did it all feel like it was only the beginning of something worse? Her whole life felt suddenly fragile, like a glass held over a stone floor. A promotion like this was stressful, even when it was supposed to be the good kind. For a long moment, Liana didn't move. She stood in the dim hallway, just beyond the threshold of the kitchen, gripping the wall like she needed it to keep herself upright. Her breath came in shallow bursts, soft, fast, and uneven. The room felt too warm, too bright, too loud with the sound of voices she no longer recognized. Marcus hadn't stopped talking. Neither had the woman. Their hushed laughter floated through the space like poison. Liana backed away slowly, quietly, until her heel touched the welcome mat she had bought on their 3rd anniversary. Home is where love lives, it said. She felt sick. Her hand trembled as she reached for her bag. She didn't want to make a sound. Didn't want him to know she had heard everything. Not yet. Her mind raced ahead to questions she wasn't ready to answer. Where would she go? What would she do? Should she confront him or pretend she knew nothing until she figured out her next move? Her heart pounded so violently it felt like it might bruise her ribs, slipping out the front door. She eased it shut behind her, barely daring to breathe. The hallway was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere she had just escaped. The elevator took its time arriving, humming softly in the silence. As Liana pressed the ground floor button, her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored panel-wide eyes, disheveled hair, and a look of disbelief that didn't belong on her face. How did this happen? How did she not see the signs? When the elevator doors opened in the lobby, she walked straight out into the humid afternoon air as if her legs already knew where to go. Her mind was a different story spinning, stumbling, collapsing over itself. Her phone vibrated. Not Marcus. Not her mother. Jalien. Her co-worker. Her friend. The one who always seemed to understand her even when she said almost nothing at all. Jen, you left the office fast. Everything good? Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. What could she say? Everything felt like too much to type, too much to admit. Leona, can you meet me, please? I don't want to be alone. His response came almost immediately. Yelen, on my way. Same spot. She stared at the message for a second. Then tapped. Liana, yes. The same spot meant the small diner tucked beneath an old awning on Briarcrest Avenue, a narrow place with warm lighting and tables that wobbled slightly on uneven tiles. They had gone there many times after long work days when venting felt easier over cheap fries and bottomless iced tea. Today, she didn't need fries. She needed air. She needed someone who wasn't lying to her. The diner was nearly empty when she arrived. Only a bored-looking cashier stood behind the counter, scrolling on his phone. The overhead lights flickered faintly, as they always did. The place smelled of butter, coffee, and melted cheese, a comforting scent that wrapped around her as she slid into their usual booth. Jan burst through the door 10 minutes later. Still in his work clothes, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. His expression shifted the second he saw her eyes softening, brows pulling together with concern. Liana, he said gently, settling across from her. You look shaken. What happened? Her throat tightened. I went home early, she whispered. And I shouldn't have. Yelen leaned forward, hands clasped. Tell me. The words stuck to the back of her tongue, bitter and heavy. She had always prided herself on being composed, rational, careful with her emotions. But now they surged like flood water. Her voice trembled. He was home, she murmured. And not alone. Jelen's jaw clenched. With who? A woman. Someone young. Someone who knows exactly what she's doing. Liana swallowed hard, staring down at her hands. But that's not even the worst part. They were talking about my grandmother's property, about how he's been manipulating me, about waiting for her to die. Yelen exhaled slowly, but not with shock, with anger. A deep, quiet anger he rarely showed. That's sick, he said. That's God. Liana, I'm so sorry. She shook her head. How could I be so blind? 12 years, Yelen, 12. And I didn't see any of it. He reached across the table, resting his hand over hers. It was warm, steady, a grounding force. You trusted someone you loved, he said softly. That doesn't make you blind. It makes you human. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them back. Crying here in public felt too vulnerable even now. The waiter approached. Can I get you to anything? Just water, Liana said quickly. Yelen nodded. Same. Once the waiter left, Liana drew a shaky breath. I don't know what to do. I can't go back. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. You're not going back there right now, Yelen said firmly. Not alone, she half laughed, half sobbed. I feel so stupid. You're not, he insisted. You're stronger than you think. She didn't believe him. Not really. But the words eased something deep inside her. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Her pulse spiked, but when she answered, an older nurse's voice said, Hello, is this Liana Hartwell? Yes, this is Cedarwell Hospital. Your grandmother, Nora Hartwell, was brought in earlier today. We're calling the next of kin. The room tilted. What? What happened? Is she okay? She was admitted with a suspected stroke, the nurse said calmly. She's stable, but resting. We're not allowing visitors until the doctor evaluates her again. A suspected stroke. Liana felt the diner blur at the edges. Can you tell me who called the ambulance? I'll need to check the report, the nurse replied, flipping pages. It says an unidentified male was present. He didn't give a name. Liana closed her eyes, nausea rising like a tide. Marcus. It had to be. Yelen saw her expression change and touched her wrist. What is it? She lowered the phone slowly. It was him, she whispered. Yelen, he went to see my grandmother today. Jelen's face darkened. Why would he? But he stopped mid-sentence. They both knew the answer. Suddenly Leona shot to her feet. We have to go. I should have gone straight to her. I've wasted time here. Yelen rose with her. I'll drive. No, I'll drive. I need to do something with my hands or I'll lose it. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but I'm coming with you. They hurried out of the diner, the door's chime ringing sharply behind them. Leona slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel with trembling fingers. Yelen climbed in beside her. The car felt too small for the storm inside her chest. As they pulled onto the road. Evening traffic thickened around them, slow, frustrating, suffocating. Try calling her, Yelen suggested. Maybe she'll answer. She always answers, Leona whispered hoarsely. Always, but today wasn't normal. Today nothing felt normal. She dialed Grandma Nera's number. 1 ring, 2, 3, straight to voicemail. Her breath hitched. This is my fault, she muttered. I should have gone to her. Don't, Yelen said. Don't blame yourself for someone else's cruelty. But it didn't stop the guilt. Nothing could. Ahead. The red brake lights glowed in long rows stretching toward the horizon like a warning. Yelen, Leona whispered. Voice cracking, I don't know how my life fell apart in a single day. He looked at her. Sadness and something else flickering in his eyes. It didn't fall apart, he said softly. It was already broken. Today. You finally saw the pieces. And as traffic inched forward, Leona felt that bitter, painful truth settle deep in her chest. Nothing about this was normal. The traffic barely moved. Red taillights stretched ahead in a glowing sea, reflecting off Liana's windshield like distant embers. Her fingers tightened around the steering wheel until her knuckles went pale. Every slow minute felt like a personal attack. Every brake tap another reminder that she was not where she needed to be. Rain began to sprinkle across the glass. Then slowly turned into a steady drizzle. Wipers swept back and forth with a rhythmic swish, but it did little to calm the rising panic inside her. I should have gone straight to Grandma's apartment, Leona muttered. I wasted time at the diner. I wasted time driving home. Every minute I wasn't with her. Leona, Yelen said, steady but firm. Stop, you did not do this. You didn't know. I should have, she snapped, then instantly regretted her tone. I didn't mean. I know, he said gently. You're scared. Anyone would be. He glanced at her profile, the tight jaw, trembling lips, eyes fixed on the road but not really seeing it. She looked like someone holding herself together through sheer force of will. Leona sighed shakily. She's all I have. My grandmother. She raised me more than my parents ever did. I can't lose her. Not after everything else. You're not losing her, Yelen reassured. The hospital said she's stable. That's a good sign. But what of Marcus? Her voice broke before she could finish. Yelen's expression hardened. We don't know what he did. Not yet. But we'll find out. Leona swallowed and nodded. But her heart wouldn't settle. It beat wildly against her ribs like a trapped bird, trying to break free. At the next light, the car lurched to another stop. She exhaled sharply, leaning her forehead against the steering wheel. The light above them blinked red longer than usual, or maybe it only felt that way. Jalien placed a hand very lightly on her back. Hey, he murmured. Breathe. She didn't realize she had stopped breathing until she gasped in a shaky lungful of air. Tears welled and she blinked them away furiously. Of all days, she couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not yet. After what felt like hours, though it had only been 40 minutes, they reached Cedarwell Hospital. Leona pulled into the parking lot faster than she should have, brakes screeching softly as she slid into a spot. She was out of the car before the engine fully stilled. Jalien hurried after her, grabbing an umbrella from the back seat. Rain pattered heavily now, soaking the pavement. Wait, he called, catching up and holding the umbrella over both of them. Slow down or you'll slip. Leona didn't slow. She practically sprinted to the entrance, pushing through the sliding doors and heading straight for the reception desk. A tired-looking nurse typed on a computer, glancing up as they approached. "Hi," Leona said, breathless. "My grandmother, Nora Hartwell, she was brought in earlier today. They told me she had a suspected stroke." The nurse checked a clipboard. "Yes, she's in the neurological observation wing. 4th floor. But can I see her?" The nurse winced. "I'm sorry. The doctor hasn't approved visitors yet. She's resting and undergoing tests." Leanna's shoulders fell. "I just want to know if she's conscious. If she asked for me. We'll update you as soon as we can," the nurse promised. "Please wait in the family lounge." The words tasted like cold metal in Leanna's mouth. Necessary, but painful. Yelen guided her gently toward the waiting area, a small room with stiff chairs, faded magazines, and a muted news channel playing on a mounted television. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and wet coats. Leona sank into a seat, her hands clasped tightly around her phone. What if he scared her? She whispered. What if she saw through him? What if she tried to confront him and Leona? Yelen knelt slightly so he was eye level with her. "You are spinning. You need to slow down." She pressed her palms to her eyes. "I can't, my mind won't stop. Every time I try to think straight, I picture him standing in her doorway. I picture him doing something to her. I picture." Stop. His voice sharpened, not unkind, but enough to cut through her spiral. "Let's look at what we do know," he said calmly. "Your grandmother is stable. She was conscious when she was taken out of her building. That means whatever happened, she wasn't alone. She wasn't abandoned." Leona nodded slowly, tears slipping through her fingers despite her effort to hold them back. "I'm scared," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Yelen leaned closer, gently removing her hands from her face so he could see her eyes. "I know, but you're not facing this alone. Not anymore." She stared at him, really looked at him for the first time since he arrived at the diner. His kindness, his steadiness, the sincerity in his voice that she hadn't recognized earlier because she had been drowning in panic. A strange warmth flickered through her chest. "Thank you," she murmured. He offered a small smile. Always. They sat in silence for a moment. The television played something about a missing senator, but neither of them listened. Leanna's phone buzzed suddenly, jerking her upright. A message from an unknown number. Her stomach twisted. "What is it?" Yelen asked. Leana opened the text, breath catching. "Unknown, we need to talk." Now below it, a location pin. Her throat tightened. Her palms grew cold. "It's him," she whispered. "It has to be Marcus." Yelen straightened immediately. "Let me see." She handed him the phone. He studied the message, his brows furrowing. "He wants to meet you alone." Leona swallowed hard. What if he knows I heard him? What if he's panicking? Or what if he wants to manipulate you again? Yelen said grimly. "We should call the police." "No," she said quickly. "Not yet. If we do, and it's nothing, they'll dismiss everything else I try to say. I need to hear what he wants." Yelen's jaw tightened. "Then I'm coming with you," he said. "Come alone." Yelen met her gaze. "You think I care what he says?" Leona hesitated, torn between fear and the instinct to keep Yelen safe. "He'll leave if he sees you. Then I won't get out of the car," he replied. "But I'm not letting you walk into whatever this is without backup." A long silence stretched between them, filled with tension, fear, trust, and something deeper neither of them dared to examine. Finally, Leona nodded. "Okay, you stay in the car. But I go by myself." Yelen sighed but didn't argue. "Fine, but if I sense anything is wrong, anything, I'm stepping in." "I don't care what he thinks." Leona squeezed his arm. "Thank you." The nurse entered the lounge then, briefly fracturing the moment. "Miss Hartwell?" she called. Leona jumped up. "Yes. Your grandmother is awake. Weak, but conscious. She asked for you." Relief washed over Leona so intensely her knees nearly buckled. "Can I see her?" The nurse nodded. "Just for a few minutes," as they walked toward the elevators. Leona felt her pulse pound with a different kind of urgency, not panic, but desperate love. "Yelen," she whispered, pausing before entering her grandmother's room. "Please, don't leave." He touched her shoulder gently. "I'm right here." Leona took a breath and stepped inside. Grandma Nara lay in the hospital bed, small and frail, but her eyes those warm, sharp eyes lifted when she saw Leona. "Baby," she said weakly. Leona rushed to her side, gripping her hand. "Grandma, I'm here. I'm right here." Nora squeezed weakly. "He came by today." Leona froze. Jelen's head snapped up. "Who?" Leona whispered. Nora swallowed, her voice frail but clear. "Marcus." The room went silent. Leanna's world tilted again, and the message buzzing in her phone felt suddenly more dangerous than she had realized. For a moment, Leona couldn't speak. The hospital room felt too small, too quiet, too heavy with everything she feared. The monitor beside her grandmother pulsed with a steady, fragile rhythm, a soft beeping that echoed in the stillness. Grandma Nara's fingers were cool against hers, fragile, but her gaze was steady, clear. He came to your apartment today," Leona whispered, afraid of the answer. Nora nodded faintly. "Around the afternoon. Maybe 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. The same time Marcus had been seen leaving their building. The same time he'd ignored her calls. The same time everything started to fall apart." Leona felt something sharp twist in her chest. Jalien stepped closer, but stayed respectfully at a distance. His face was tense, jaw tight, eyes shifting between Leona and her grandmother with protective concern. "What did he say to you?" Leona asked softly. "Did he do anything? Did he upset you?" Nara blinked, taking a moment to gather her breath. "He knocked." I didn't want to answer. You know I don't like unexpected visitors. But he kept knocking. Persistent little man. Despite everything, Leona felt a trembling smile twitch at her lips. "That sounds like him." When I opened the door, Nara continued, "he came in with that forced charm. The one he always uses when he wants something." Yelen crossed his arms, muttering under his breath. "Sounds familiar." Leona shot him a faint, grateful look, then turned her attention back to her grandmother. "What did he want?" Nara shifted slightly, wincing at the effort. Leona adjusted the bed's pillow behind her, trying to ease her discomfort. "He asked about you," Nora said. "About your visits. About your future." Her eyes narrowed. "He asked strange questions. Ones no good husband should ask." Leanna's heart pounded. "Like what?" Nara swallowed slowly. "He wanted to know if I'd made decisions about my property, if I'd changed any documents, if I had consulted any lawyers recently." Leanna's breath hitched. "He was fishing," Yelen murmured, trying to confirm whether his plan was safe. Nora nodded. "I didn't answer him directly. I told him my affairs are my business. I told him if he had questions about you, he should ask you himself." Leona squeezed her grandmother's hand. "Thank you, I thought he got the message," Nora continued, her voice weakening. "But then he looked around. Not at me, round my home. At my things. My pictures, my safe. He looked like a man." Measuring? Leona repeated, confused. For what he thought he'd soon own, Nora said simply. The words hit Leona like a punch to the ribs. "Oh God," she covered her mouth. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have warned you. I should have stopped that," Nora whispered sharply. Even weak, her voice held authority. "You didn't bring this snake into my home. He slithered in on his own." Yelen let out a quiet breath of agreement. "But after he left," Nara continued, "I felt strange, dizzy, my vision blurred. My chest tightened. I thought it was just the stress of dealing with him. But it got worse." Leanna's heart pounded violently. "Did he do something? Did he give you anything? Did he touch your tea, your food?" "No," Nora shook her head slowly. "He didn't touch anything. And he didn't stay long." But the moment he left, I knew something was wrong. I tried to call you, but my hands were shaking. I couldn't dial. Leona felt her throat close, so I called the emergency line, Nara whispered. I told them I didn't feel right. They sent the ambulance. Liana's eyes filled with tears, relief, fear, guilt, all tangled together. You did the right thing, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so grateful you called. Nara's eyelids fluttered. I tried to stay awake in the ambulance. I wanted to make sure they called you. But by the time they arrived at the hospital, everything felt heavy, like someone was pulling me underwater. Leona leaned forward, pressing her forehead gently against her grandmother's hand. Yelen stepped closer. The doctor will figure out what caused it, he said softly. The important thing is you're here, awake and stable. Nora smiled faintly. And I get to see my girl. Leona looked up, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I love you so much. I know, Nara whispered. Which is why you need to be careful. Leona tensed. What do you mean? Nara's gaze sharpened. Even in her weakened state, he's dangerous now, she said. Not in the way you think. Not violent. But desperate men make foolish choices. And foolish men cause damage. Leona swallowed hard. I can handle him. Nora squeezed her hand weakly. Not alone. Before Leona could respond, the door opened slightly and a middle-aged doctor stepped in. Sorry to interrupt, he said gently. We need to run another scan. Just routine. It'll only take a few minutes. Leona nodded and stood. Can I come back after? Of course, the doctor replied. She'll be back in her room shortly. Yelen helped Leona step aside as the nurses entered, unlocking the bed wheels and maneuvering Nora out of the room. Leona kept hold of her grandmother's hand until the very last second, letting go only when the gurney reached the hallway. Then the door clicked shut. The silence left behind felt suffocating. Leona pressed a hand to her chest. She's stronger than she looks. But when she said he was looking around, Yelen, what if he was planning something? What if he, hey, Yelen gripped her shoulders gently. Look at me, she lifted her tear-filled eyes. You are not alone in this, he said calmly. We're going to figure out what Marcus wants, what he's planning, and what he did. And we'll protect your grandmother, no matter what. Leona took a shaky breath. But he texted me. He wants to meet, tonight. I know, Yelen said. And we're going. But not until we know your grandmother is stable. And not without a plan. Leona nodded slowly, feeling her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Let's wait in the lounge, Yelen suggested. Then, when she's settled back in, we'll go. As they walked down the quiet hallway, Liana's phone buzzed again. She didn't look. She already knew who it was. And this time, the message would be worse. Because Marcus always escalated. Always. They reached the family lounge again. And Leona sank into one of the chairs, rubbing her temples. Her mind felt torn in too many directions. Worry for her grandmother. Fear of what Marcus was planning. And somewhere under it all, a flicker of something else. Something that came every time she looked at Jalien. She shoved that thought deep down for now. Liana, Yelen said, settling beside her. Before we meet him, tell me honestly, what are you most afraid of? She stared at her hands, twisting together in her lap. That he won't stop, she whispered. That my grandmother wasn't enough. That I'm next. Jalen's jaw tightened. He won't touch you. Not while I'm here. Leona let out a long, shaky breath. Thank you. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, a nurse poked her head into the lounge. You can see her again, she said with a soft smile. She's tired, but stable. Leona stood immediately. Yelen rose with her, together. They walked back toward the room, but as they approached the doorway, Liana's phone buzzed again, this time. She looked. Her stomach dropped. Marcus, if you don't come now, I'll come to you. And we both know you don't want that. Liana's blood ran cold. Jalien saw her expression shift. What is it? Wordlessly, she handed him the phone. He read the message. His face darkened. "This is it," he said quietly. "We leave in 10 minutes. Leona nodded. Because now, it wasn't just about the truth. It was about danger. And Marcus had just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. For a moment, Leona couldn't speak. The hospital room felt too small, too quiet, too heavy with everything she feared. The monitor beside her grandmother pulsed with a steady, fragile rhythm, a soft beeping that echoed in the stillness. Grandma Nara's fingers were cool against hers, fragile, but her gaze was steady, clear. He came to your apartment today," Leona whispered, afraid of the answer. Nora nodded faintly. "Around the afternoon. Maybe 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. The same time Marcus had been seen leaving their building. The same time he'd ignored her calls. The same time everything started to fall apart. Leona felt something sharp twist in her chest. Jalen stepped closer, but stayed respectfully at a distance. His face was tense, jaw tight, eyes shifting between Leona and her grandmother with protective concern. "What did he say to you?" Leona asked softly. "Did he do anything? Did he upset you?" Nara blinked, taking a moment to gather her breath. "He knocked." I didn't want to answer. You know I don't like unexpected visitors. But he kept knocking. Persistent little man. Despite everything, Leona felt a trembling smile twitch at her lips. "That sounds like him. When I opened the door," Nara continued, "he came in with that forced charm. The one he always uses when he wants something." Yelen crossed his arms, muttering under his breath. "Sounds familiar." Leona shot him a faint, grateful look, then turned her attention back to her grandmother. "What did he want?" Nara shifted slightly, wincing at the effort. Leona adjusted the bed's pillow behind her, trying to ease her discomfort. "He asked about you," Nora said. "About your visits. About your future." Her eyes narrowed. "He asked strange questions. Ones no good husband should ask." Leanna's heart pounded. "Like what?" Nara swallowed slowly. "He wanted to know if I'd made decisions about my property, if I'd changed any documents, if I had consulted any lawyers recently." Leanna's breath hitched. "He was fishing," Yelen murmured. "Trying to confirm whether his plan was safe." Nora nodded. "I didn't answer him directly. I told him my affairs are my business. I told him if he had questions about you, he should ask you himself." Leona squeezed her grandmother's hand. "Thank you, I thought he got the message," Nora continued, her voice weakening. "But then he looked around. Not at me, round my home. At my things. My pictures, my safe. He looked like a man." Measuring? Leona repeated, confused. For what he thought he'd soon own, Nora said simply. The words hit Leona like a punch to the ribs. "Oh God," she covered her mouth. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have warned you. I should have stopped that," Nora whispered sharply. Even weak, her voice held authority. "You didn't bring this snake into my home." He slithered in on his own. Yelen let out a quiet breath of agreement. "But after he left," Nara continued, "I felt strange, dizzy, my vision blurred. My chest tightened. I thought it was just the stress of dealing with him. But it got worse." Leanna's heart pounded violently. "Did he do something? Did he give you anything? Did he touch your tea, your food?" "No," Nora shook her head slowly. "He didn't touch anything. And he didn't stay long. But the moment he left, I knew something was wrong. I tried to call you, but my hands were shaking. I couldn't dial." Leona felt her throat close. "So I called the emergency line," Nara whispered. "I told them I didn't feel right. They sent the ambulance." Leanna's eyes filled with tears, relief, fear, guilt, all tangled together. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so grateful you called." Nara's eyelids fluttered. "I tried to stay awake in the ambulance. I wanted to make sure they called you. But by the time they arrived at the hospital, everything felt heavy, like someone was pulling me underwater. Liana leaned forward, pressing her forehead gently against her grandmother's hand. Yelen stepped closer. "The doctor will figure out what caused it," he said softly. "The important thing is you're here, awake and stable." Nora smiled faintly. "And I get to see my girl." Liana looked up, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "I love you so much." "I know," Nora whispered. "Which is why you need to be careful." Liana tensed. "What do you mean?" Nora's gaze sharpened. "Even in her weakened state, he's dangerous now," she said. "Not in the way you think. Not violent. But desperate men make foolish choices. And foolish men cause damage." Liana swallowed hard. "I can handle him." Nora squeezed her hand weakly. "Not alone." Before Liana could respond, the door opened slightly and a middle-aged doctor stepped in. "Sorry to interrupt," he said gently. "We need to run another scan. Just routine. It'll only take a few minutes." Liana nodded and stood. "Can I come back after?" "Of course," the doctor replied. "She'll be back in her room shortly." Yelen helped Liana step aside as the nurses entered, unlocking the bed wheels and maneuvering Nora out of the room. Liana kept hold of her grandmother's hand until the very last second, letting go only when the gurney reached the hallway. Then the door clicked shut. The silence left behind felt suffocating. Liana pressed a hand to her chest. "She's stronger than she looks." But when she said he was looking around, "Yelen, what if he was planning something? What if he—" "Hey," Yelen gripped her shoulders gently. "Look at me." She lifted her tear-filled eyes. "You are not alone in this," he said calmly. "We're going to figure out what Marcus wants, what he's planning, and what he did. And we'll protect your grandmother, no matter what." Liana took a shaky breath. "But he texted me. He wants to meet, tonight." "I know," Yelen said. "And we're going. But not until we know your grandmother is stable. And not without a plan." Liana nodded slowly, feeling her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "Let's wait in the lounge," Yelen suggested. "Then, when she's settled back in, we'll go." As they walked down the quiet hallway, Liana's phone buzzed again. She didn't look. She already knew who it was, and this time the message would be worse. Because Marcus always escalated. Always. They reached the family lounge again, and Liana sank into one of the chairs, rubbing her temples. Her mind felt torn in too many directions. Worry for her grandmother, fear of what Marcus was planning, and somewhere under it all, a flicker of something else, something that came every time she looked at Jalien. She shoved that thought deep down for now. "Liana," Yelen said, settling beside her. "Before we meet him, tell me honestly, what are you most afraid of?" She stared at her hands, twisting together in her lap. "That he won't stop," she whispered. "That my grandmother wasn't enough. That I'm next." Jalen's jaw tightened. "He won't touch you. Not while I'm here." Liana let out a long, shaky breath. "Thank you." 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, a nurse poked her head into the lounge. "You can see her again," she said with a soft smile. "She's tired, but stable." Liana stood immediately. Yelen rose with her, together. They walked back toward the room, but as they approached the doorway, Liana's phone buzzed again. This time she looked. Her stomach dropped. "Marcus, if you don't come now, I'll come to you. And we both know you don't want that." Liana's blood ran cold. Jalien saw her expression shift. "What is it?" Wordlessly, she handed him the phone. He read the message. His face darkened. "This is it," he said quietly. "We leave in 10 minutes." Liana nodded. Because now, it wasn't just about the truth. It was about danger. And Marcus had just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. The moment Liana stepped into the rain, it hit her like a cold wall. Sharp, drenching, relentless. Her clothes clung to her body within seconds, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Marcus was inside, and every instinct in her screamed that this moment would change everything. Behind her, Yelen stayed half hidden behind the open car door. Eyes locked on her as she walked. He didn't call out, didn't distract her, but she felt his presence like a shield at her back. The old textile mill loomed ahead, its hollow windows staring blankly like the empty eyes of a long-dead creature. Water dripped through the broken roof, collecting in dark puddles on the cracked concrete. Liana swallowed tightly, stepping through the rusted doorway. The interior was darker than she expected, a vast open space swallowed in shadows. Only a faint beam of light seeped in from a broken skylight above, illuminating drifting dust and rain mist in the air. Her footsteps echoed softly. "Marcus," she called, voice trembling despite her effort to steady it. Silence. Only the dripping. Then Liana, his voice slid out from somewhere in the back of the room, calm to calm, controlled in the way he always spoke when he wanted to manipulate her emotions. Liana's breath hitched. She turned slowly. Marcus stepped forward, emerging from behind a half-collapsed support pillar. He wore a dark coat, soaked at the shoulders. His hair was wet and plastered back. But his expression, that expression was familiar, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You came," he said softly. Liana took a step back before she could stop herself. "You said you'd come to me if I didn't," he chuckled, a quiet sound that made her stomach twist. "I didn't mean it as a threat. I just needed to speak with you. Privately." "That's not how it sounded," she whispered. Marcus walked closer, his hands raised slightly as if he were calming an animal. "You've been avoiding me. I had to get your attention somehow. You know why I'm avoiding you," Liana said. "You know exactly what you did." Marcus's eyes flickered, just for a second, then settled into something like disappointment. "So you heard that," he murmured. At the diner, Liana's pulse spiked. "Yes, I heard everything," he sighed, rubbing a hand across his forehead. "Liana, things got complicated. You wouldn't understand. Try me," she snapped. Marcus approached another step, too close, and her instincts screamed danger. "Everything I said, everything you overheard. It wasn't about you. Not directly. It was about business, about the future. You misunderstood." Liana stared at him, disbelief twisting into nausea. "You were planning to use my grandmother's property to pay off your debts. It's not like that," Marcus argued quickly. "I just needed leverage. Something to show investors I was still valuable. It never meant anything would actually happen to her." "You asked my grandmother about her property today," Liana countered. "You went to her home. You knew she lived alone. You cornered her." Marcus's jaw clenched. "I didn't corner her. I went to talk. That's all." "No," Liana said quietly. "You went to see what you could take." The truth hung in the air like a blade. For the first time, Marcus's smoothed-over expression faltered. Something darker flickered through him, a frustration he was trying desperately to hide beneath his usual mask. "Liana," he said, voice dropping to a whisper, "I never intended for any of this to affect you." "Then why did you lie to me?" she demanded. 4 years. 12 years of pretending everything was fine while using me and my family behind my back. Marcus's lips tightened. "Because I had no choice. There is always a choice," he laughed bitterly. "Not when you're trying to hold everything together. You think my debts appeared out of nowhere. You think my clients pulled out for no reason. I've been drowning for years while I what?" Liana snapped. "Trusted you." A long silence. Then Marcus stepped closer again, lowering his voice. "This doesn't have to end badly. We can fix it. You and me. If you just sign the papers." Liana froze. "What papers?" His gaze flicked toward his coat pocket. Just for a split second. But she saw it. Panic sliced down her spine. "You brought something for me to sign." Marcus exhaled sharply. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Did you cause her medical emergency?" Liana whispered. "Did you do something to her today?" Marcus's face went blank to blank. No, he said, but there was a crack in his voice. I didn't touch her. I didn't have to. She's old, Leona. Her health is fragile. The word sent a chill through her body. Old, fragile. Like he was justifying it, like her grandmother collapsing was. Convenient, Marcus, she whispered. What happened to you? How did you become this person? He didn't answer. Instead, he took a step closer, slow, deliberate, almost gentle. And yet Leanna's legs trembled. Just sign the papers, he murmured. Once everything settles, we'll be fine. I promise you. No, she said, finding her voice again. I'm not signing anything, Marcus inhaled. Slow, sharp, dangerous. Leona, don't make this difficult. I'm leaving. She turned toward the doorway. Marcus grabbed her wrist. Not forcefully. Not enough to bruise, but the grip froze her blood anyway. Let go, she said. He didn't. I said let go. She yanked, and the motion startled him enough that he loosened his hand. She stumbled backward, breath shaking. Marcus lowered his voice, eyes narrowing. You're making a mistake. No, she said, stepping away. The mistake was trusting you. She didn't wait to hear his reply. She turned and ran toward the exit. Rain thundered against the pavement outside, lightning flashing briefly as she burst through the doorway. Her shoes splashed through puddles, heart pounding, breath tearing out in wild bursts. Jalien was already out of the car, rushing toward her. What happened? He asked urgently, grabbing her arms to steady her. Go, she gasped. Go now. Marcus appeared at the doorway behind her. Jalen's eyes shifted instantly, protective, fierce. Get in the car. Leona and Jalen hurried back to the vehicle, and he slammed the doors shut, locking them. Marcus didn't chase them. He simply stood in the rain, watching. Staring. Like he was measuring something again. The engine roared to life. They pulled away fast, tires hissing across wet asphalt. Only when they reached the main road did Leona break down, tears spilling uncontrollably. Yelen reached over, gripping her hand tight. You're safe, he said. You're okay. He's not touching you again. But the dread in Leanna's chest didn't fade, because Marcus hadn't just wanted a meeting tonight. He had wanted something else, and she knew, without a doubt, that this wasn't over, not even close. Leona thought running from Marcus meant escaping him, but she was wrong. He wasn't done with her. Not even close. The car sped through the rain-soaked streets, windshield wipers slicing back and forth in frantic sweeps. Streetlights blurred past like streaks of gold, but Leona barely saw them. Her chest felt tight, her breath uneven, her palms sweat cold. She kept staring at the side mirror, terrified Marcus's headlights will appear behind them. Jalien noticed. You're gripping the seat so hard you're shaking. I don't want him following us, she whispered. I don't want him anywhere near my grandmother. He won't, Yelen said firmly. He's not following. Leona turned. Just to be sure. Nothing but rain and darkness behind them. But the quiet didn't calm her. Not after the look Marcus gave her. Not after she saw the papers he wanted her to sign. Not after he grabbed her wrist with a desperation that felt unhinged. Her stomach twisted again. Leona didn't know it yet, but Marcus wouldn't need to follow her tonight. He already had something planned. Something she couldn't see coming. Yelen drove until the industrial district faded behind them, merging into the brighter, safer parts of the city. Only then did he slow down, breathing softer. Talk to me, he said gently. What happened in there? Leona swallowed hard. He had papers. What kind? Legal documents. Something about property leverage. He wanted me to sign them. Her voice cracked. He said it was the only way out of his mess. Jalen's hands tightened around the steering wheel. He brought you to an abandoned warehouse in the middle of the night to get you to sign something. Leona, that's not desperation. That's obsession. I know, she wiped at her face. I know, what else happened? Leona hesitated. The memory of Marcus grabbing her wrist made her stomach twist. He got angry, she whispered. Not yelling, not violent, but cold. The kind of anger you don't see until it's too late. Yelen exhaled slowly. He's losing control. I think he did something to Grandma, she whispered. I think he scared her so badly that no, Yelen cut her off. You're not blaming yourself or letting his actions twist your mind. You didn't cause her episode, he did. Or at the very least, he triggered something. Leona pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. I just want this to end. It will, Yelen promised. But you're not facing this alone. She closed her eyes, letting his words settle deep into the parts of her that had been shaking all night. But right when she felt a sliver of safety, her phone buzzed, and everything shattered. Leona flinched, staring at the glowing screen. Unknown number ... again ... double quotes. No, she whispered. Please not again. Yelen pulled over to the side of the road, turning to her. Show me, hands shaking. She opened the message. Her breath stopped. Unknown, you won't avoid me forever. We're not finished. Attached below it, a photo taken just minutes ago. A picture of Leona running out of the warehouse with Yelen behind her. Leona felt her pulse crash into panic. He took this. He was watching us. Yelen's jaw clenched hard. He's playing with you. Trying to intimidate you. He's stalking us, Leona whispered. Yeah, and we're done letting him control the night. He grabbed her phone gently, studying the angle of the shot. This came from the west side of the building. He stayed outside, probably watching from behind a truck or another door. Leona covered her mouth, shaking. Yelen, I'm scared. He reached over, pulling her into a brief but grounding embrace. I know, but you're not alone. I've got you, and for a moment, just a moment, Leona let herself lean into him. She let herself breathe. She let herself feel the warmth, the security, the promise of something she wasn't ready to name. When she pulled back, Yelen kept her hand on her shoulder. We're going back to the hospital. Your grandmother needs you. And Marcus won't try anything at a hospital. Leona nodded weakly. Okay. Double quotes. Alien shifted the car into gear and merged back onto the road. But the fear didn't leave her. The photo, the angle, the timing. It meant Marcus was closer than she realized, watching, waiting, planning. And what Leona didn't know was that Marcus wasn't the only one watching her tonight. Another pair of eyes had already taken notice. Back at the hospital parking lot, the rain had calmed to a gentle drizzle. Yelen walked Leona inside, staying close as if expecting Marcus to jump out from behind any corner. They reached the elevators. Do you want me to come up with you? He asked. Leona hesitated. Her voice softened. Would you? Of course. They stepped into the elevator together. The door slid shut, and the car ascended with a quiet hum. Leona stared at the floor numbers rising. Yelen? Yeah, when I was in there with him. When he grabbed me. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was 12 again. Like every time he lied to me. Like every time I ignored the signs. Yelen stepped closer, lowering his voice. That's trauma. It's not weakness. And it doesn't define you. She met his eyes, something raw inside her softening. Thank you, he nodded gently. Always. The elevator dinged, and they stepped out onto the 4th floor. Nurses hurried past. Machines beeped faintly from adjoining rooms. But something felt different. The lights were dimmer, the hallway quieter. Then Leona saw it. Her grandmother's door was cracked open, just slightly. Yelen saw it too. Stay behind me. He approached first, pushing the door open slowly. Bracing himself, inside Leona gasped. Her grandmother was awake, sitting slightly upright, breathing hard, but that wasn't what terrified her. What terrified her was the nurse standing beside her grandmother's bed, a nurse she hadn't seen before, a nurse whose posture stiffened. The moment they entered, "Who are you?" Yelen demanded. The nurse turned. And Leanna's heart dropped. It wasn't a nurse. It was a woman in scrubs with no badge. No hospital logo. No identification. She froze. Then bolted for the side door. Jalien sprinted after her, but the woman slipped into the hallway, disappearing before he reached the corner. Leanna rushed to her grandmother. "Grandma, are you okay? What did she do? Did she touch anything?" Nara shook her head, trembling. "She just stood there, watching me. Didn't say a word." A cold shiver shot down Leanna's spine. Why would someone come into her room without a badge? She whispered. Jalien came back, breathless. "She's gone." She knew where to run. "Who was she?" Leanna asked, voice trembling. Jalien didn't answer immediately. Then he looked at Leanna with a seriousness that made her stomach turn. "That wasn't just anyone," he said quietly. "She was looking for something, or someone," Leanna whispered. Because suddenly it clicked. The unknown woman. The timing. The silent watching. The disappearance. This wasn't random. This was connected. To Marcus. To the photo. To the documents. To everything. Grandma Nara whispered weakly. "Baby, someone is trying to scare you." Leanna's hands trembled as she held her grandmother's. "No," she whispered, voice trembling. They weren't trying to scare her. They were warning her, because the real threat was already closer than she thought. Leanna thought she'd reached the end of the nightmare. She was wrong, because the truth waiting for her tonight was bigger than Marcus, bigger than fear, and more dangerous than she ever imagined. The hospital room felt colder now, as if the air itself had shifted. The woman in the fake scrubs had vanished, leaving behind only a ripple of dread and unanswered questions. Jalien stood at the door, chest rising and falling sharply from the chase. Leanna sat at her grandmother's bedside, still clutching her hand, trying to steady her breathing. "She didn't touch anything," Nora whispered weakly. "But she watched me. Why didn't she speak?" Leanna asked, voice trembling. "Why didn't she take anything?" Jalen's jaw tightened. "Because she wasn't here for your grandmother." Leanna's head snapped toward him. "Then who was she here for?" "You," Jalen said quietly. "Or other. A message for you." Leanna's heart dropped into her stomach. A message from who? Jalen hesitated. Long enough for Leanna's pulse to kick into fear again. "She wasn't working for Marcus," he said finally. "I'm sure of it." Leanna stared at him. "Then who?" But before she could finish, her phone buzzed, one vibration, then another, then another, a series of rapid messages. Her breath caught as she slowly lifted the phone. The texts weren't from Marcus, they were from the same unknown number. But these messages were different. Unknown, leave the hospital. Don't stay there. You're not safe. Leanna's fingers trembled. Jelen. She's warning us. He took the phone, eyes narrowing. These messages. They're too exact. Whoever sent them knew what was happening in real time. How? Leanna whispered. There was only one possibility. The unknown woman wasn't there to harm them. She was there to help. But if a stranger was trying to protect Leanna, then the real enemy hadn't shown their face yet. And Marcus was only the beginning. Leanna turned to her grandmother. "Did she say anything? Anything at all?" Nara shook her head weakly. "Not a word. She didn't have to," Jelen murmured. Her silence was the message. Leanna's mind raced. "We need to leave." "Yes," Jelen agreed. "Now," but before they could move, the door suddenly clicked again. Leanna's breath froze. Jalien stepped forward instantly, fists clenched, prepared, but it was only a nurse. A real one, with an ID badge and a clipboard. She blinked at them. "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt." "It's okay," Leanna said, voice shaky. "We're just gathering our things." The nurse nodded politely and checked the vitals on the monitor. "Her numbers are stable. She should rest. But if you're stepping out, let me know so I can page you if anything changes." "Thank you," Leanna whispered. The moment the nurse left, Jelen turned to her. We go now. Grab your bag. Leona leaned down, kissed her grandmother's forehead, and whispered, I'll be right back. I promise. Nora squeezed her hand. Be careful, sweetheart. Leona and Yelena stepped into the hallway. He kept a protective arm near her back without touching her, guiding her toward the elevators. But as soon as they reached the end of the hall, Leona froze. A man in a dark hoodie was standing at the far end of the corridor, still, silent, watching them. Jalien immediately pulled Leona behind him. Get back. The man didn't move, didn't walk closer, didn't speak, but the moment a nurse walked past, the man slipped into a side corridor and disappeared. He's not Marcus, Yelena said, voice hard. Someone else is involved. Why would anyone be watching me? Leona whispered. Jalien exhaled slowly. Because Marcus got himself involved with the wrong people. And he used your name to do it. The realization struck Leona like ice water, running down her spine. This wasn't about a marriage or an inheritance. It was about something else. Entirely. Money, debt, illegal business, and Marcus had dragged her into it without her knowledge. Suddenly, everything made sense. The fake nurse, the photo, the meeting at the warehouse. Marcus wasn't trying to control her, he was trying to protect himself from the people he owed. And now they thought Leona was part of it. They hurried into the elevator and descended to the lobby. The doors opened, revealing bright lights and the quiet hum of late-night visitors. Leona wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. Where do we go? If the hospital isn't safe, we go somewhere public, Yelena said quickly. Somewhere crowded. Somewhere Marcus wouldn't dare cause a scene, and the people watching me? That's why we stay visible. Yelena placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Trust me, I do, she whispered. They stepped outside into the cool night. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the streets reflective and slick under the street lights. Jalien unlocked the car, and they climbed in. He drove toward the main road, making sure not to take the same path twice. 10 minutes later, he pulled into a brightly lit 24-hour cafe. Cars filled the parking lot. People were inside eating, laughing, talking. Normal life. Something Leona hadn't felt in hours. This is good, Yelena said. Too many witnesses. If anyone follows us, we'll see. They walked inside. The warm smell of coffee hit them immediately. A tired hostess greeted them and led them to a booth near the back. Leona slid into the seat, her hands trembling as she reached for a menu she couldn't even read. Yelena sat across from her, eyes constantly scanning the entrance. Tell me everything, Marcus said. He said softly. Leona nodded. He said he needed me to sign papers. Something about securing an investment. He said he was drowning in debt. Clients pulled out. He was desperate. Did he say who he owed money to? Yelena asked. No, she whispered. But he kept using the word they, and he looked terrified. Yelena leaned forward. Then this isn't just a financial mess. It's serious. What kind of people send someone into a hospital pretending to be a nurse? Leona whispered. The kind you don't want to meet. Leanna's voice cracked. Yelena, am I in danger? He reached across the table and took her hand gently. Not while I'm here. Her heartbeat steadied slightly. Jalien held her gaze. But we need help. Real help. And there's someone I can call. Who? A friend. Works in private investigations. He'll know what Marcus got mixed up with. And what these people want. Leona nodded slowly. Okay, Yelena squeezed her hand once more. You're doing great, Leona. I know you're scared, but you're here. You're fighting, she inhaled shakily. I just want this to end. It will. Just as he reached for his phone to make the call, Leanna's phone buzzed again. Her blood turned to ice. Unknown. You trusted the wrong person tonight. Go home, Leona. She stared at the message, her breath catching. What is it? Yelena asked, leaning forward. She handed him the phone. He read it. His expression shifted instantly. Confusion. anger, then something darker. "This is a trap," he muttered. "They're trying to isolate you." Leona nodded. "I know." She took a slow, shaky breath. "No matter what they say, I'm staying with you." Jalen's eyes softened, even as tension lingered in his jaw. "And I'm not leaving you." He tapped the table gently. "We'll face this together, starting now." But just as he said it, Leona felt the hairs rise on the back of her neck. She turned and froze. A man near the corner table lowered his newspaper just enough for their eyes to meet. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't blinking. He was watching her dot, and in that moment, Leona realized Marcus wasn't the danger anymore. The real threat had been sitting inches from her all along, watching, waiting, and now he knew she'd seen him. To be continued.